do no work therein.
Mm-hmm.
It is the Sabbath of the Lord.
So the first feast he gave was the Sabbath. So there was a Sabbath celebrated coming out of Israel as well. You know, you didn't have 14 days and not celebrate the Sabbath, because the instruction was given right there. Read on.
Verse 4, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations.
So these are the feasts. They're the feasts of the Most High. What makes them holy convocations? They're holy in itself. But what makes us holy is when we keep them. That's the only thing that makes us set apart is Israel. You can't say you set apart and you don't keep the feast. Read on.
Which ye shall proclaim in their season.
You shall proclaim them in their times. We're proclaiming them when we do them. That's what we're doing right now. So let's get the Heavenly Father a hand for that. He just saw what we're doing. But you have the conscience, the awareness to even be here. Read on.
Verse 5, in the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
What day did he say?
In the 14th day.
The 14th day. So I want y'all to think about that. If that was the 14th day, what day is this? It's got to be the 21st day. God? All right, meditate on that. Say lot. Read on.
In the 14th day of the first month at even in the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread.
God?
Unto the Lord.
Unto whom?
Unto the Lord.
So we're doing this, let's make no bones about it. All this is unto the Most High. That signifies that we are separate. Read on.
7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. And
so you had to eat it. It wasn't that you had to eat unleavened bread. That's the ordinance, 7 days. So 7 days. Some people say, well, you know, I didn't eat. I ate unleavened bread on the first day, but I didn't eat unleavened bread on. No, the ordinance was to eat unleavened bread all those days. Read on.
Verse 7. In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation.
Which we did. Come on.
Ye shall do no servile work therein.
Read on.
But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days.
Mm-hmm. So 7 days. So the offering we're making is a 7-day offering. This is incumbent of Passover and unleavened bread. It's a 7-day offering. It ain't a 1 day. They ain't show up 1 day, show up over, eat all the lamb, giggle and drink all the wine. No, it's a 7-day appointment. Read.
And the 7th day is an holy convocation.
And the 7th day is another set apart gathering. Come on.
Ye shall do no servile work therein.
Come on.
And the Lord spake.
Notice that he told you to don't do no several work in the 7th day. I want you to meditate on that. Say la. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Meditate. That's another 7 days. So he was even counting the days from the time we celebrated Passover. Come. Read on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses,
That's
saying,
where we are right now. Read.
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest.
So that's it right there. But it's telling you that this is a 7-day feast of unleavened bread. So I want to get into a little background so we can, make a distinction and really the importance of this feast. The distinction being how we're separate and how that unleavened is something that we need to make sure that we extract from our lives. This is the symbolism. So let me give you a little historical background. And again, I'm coming from the Metzger Coogan, the Oxford Guide to the Bible. And I use this quite a bit. I like, just how the details and how they speak with scripture. So leaven. So we look up this word leaven. So the translation to Hebrew terms used in reference to the fermenting of bread or dough. That's what leaven is synonymous with. One word is seor or sa'ar, designates the leavening agent, which we know as yeast. Yeast being a leavening agent. A piece of old dough set aside to ferment. This is important because we want to understand understanding how we're to be unleavened, you need to understand the process of fermentation as it relates to bread, sour and dough. Because this is the analogy that we see being given. Even when it comes to YAHAWAH'S, he said that he was the bread of life. Well, what type of bread would he have had to be accepted? He'd have to be unleavened bread. He'd have to be this type of bread, because this is the symbolism. Remember in the accounts of the synoptics, he said, this is my bread, my body. You know, it's great, take. So see the symbolism here, all right? Fermenting of bread, the fermentation process, or the fermenting of dough. A piece of old dough set aside to ferment. This produces sourdough, which itself is inedible. I want you to keep that in mind. That's inedible, because it has to. Sourdough is something that's, again, it would not be ready to eat. The other more frequently used word is hamas, or hamasa, hames, depending on how you pronounce it. But this is dealing with hamatzah, or unleavened bread, that we are usually, the term that we usually use. It designates the mixture of flour and water to which a piece of the old or fermented dough is added to facilitate rising. So see, the unleavened bread is dough that is sourdough that has been set aside, and then once that dough is added, a lot of times we think it's just yeast. No, it's the fermented dough that is added to the dough itself, to the freshly made dough, and that will cause it to be leavened. All right, you're starting to see some of the symbolism. This is why he's telling us we're to be separate. We're not to be like that sourdough of the world. Don't allow that to come in to what we do. And this is the distinction being made. So, level in the Bible is most prominent in texts dealing with the annual springtime, which is the Pesach celebration, which incorporated an ancient and originally separated agricultural festival, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which you see in Exodus 12:15 through 20, Exodus 13, 6 through 7, Exodus 23 and 15, as well as Leviticus 23 and 5, and we brought this out. So during this matzah, or this Feast of Unleavened Bread, the matzah was to be eaten instead of leavened bread. So you have two distinct bread. You have bread that is leavened with the sourdough. How many of you just thought it was just leavened just with yeast? Yeah, that's what most of us believe that. But it's the sourdough that had time to kind of have that fermentation. And then, because you're going to see in Scripture, there were times where dough that had leaven in it was an offering. We did have dough with leaven, and we'll see the significance. There's a difference though, so just stay with me. So when you look in the Pentateuch text, this historized this practice by relating it to the Exodus event, when the haste of the Israelites' departure precluded sufficient time for the bread to rise. Why is that important? Because we're going to see later the importance of not allowing the dough to ferment. If you allow that dough to ferment, it was haste. So there are a couple of things in this process, and we're going to see the symbolism in it, in allowing that dough to rise. Number one, that sourdough that was set to the side, you don't want that to contaminate. So if they had any sourdough, they had to get rid of that bread. Thus, that's why we get rid of the bread that has been kind of puffed up and contaminated. We're going to see in the process, one thing in the process of bread, there's the aspect of the yeast, or allowing it to ferment, and how leaven is destroyed. So in other words, the Israelites didn't have enough time for it to rise. What's one of the things that they did? They baked it before it had time. So in essence, they were killing what would cause it to rise. Because in bread, there's two processes that can destroy the leaven. Extreme hot, or what else you think? Extreme cold. But guess what causes it to rise? Lukewarmness. So what's the scripture tells us? He'd rather you be hot or cold. Because if you lukewarm, can't eat that. We can't receive that dough. That's the leavening. That's making it puffed up, which that sourdough is really unedible. That's unedible. That has to be mixed with the bread and then cooked. But what the Israelites were doing, they were like, they didn't have time, so they put that extreme heat and didn't give it time. How many of us give time for leaven to fester? Because we're not hot or cold. And so because you lukewarm, now you all puffed up. That's the fermentation process. Con? All right. So we see that the departure precluded sufficient time for the bread to rise. And that's why we have to be hurried up. Give me the scripture David made haste. It's very important because we can't give leaven, the symbolism of the sin, that sourdough, we can't give it time to rise in us. And this is what unleavened bread is all about. This is what Hamashiach did for us. Think about it. When he was suffering, he was taking on the sins and the leaven, that sourdough of the world of Israelites. And that's why he told the Father, he said, if it was possible, take this from me. I ain't never felt nothing like this. These agents are entering in. All the sin, the wickedness, the lust, the fornication, all this stuff was entering. He said, Father, this up. But he had to take it on. That's why he had to die. He had to kill it. So we see wording like sin in the flesh, and he destroyed sin in the flesh. You see what I'm saying? This is all with the process of fermentation. And so we too are to be unleavened because of what he did. Now we too have that ability. And we're going to see some scriptures that speak to that. Read what you got, King.
This is Psalm 119, verse, I start at 58. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. I thought on my ways and turned my feet unto thy testimony.
You see, he thought on his way. So it starts, this process of leavening starts where? In the mind. This is the symbolism. It starts spiritually. Again, physical analogies to convey spiritual truth. It starts to enter into the mind. Read on.
Come, verse 59. I thought on my ways and turned my feet unto thy testimony.
I thought on my ways, and he turned his feet. By turning your feet, meaning you didn't allow that sourdough to enter in. You didn't allow that leaven, the leavening agent, that yeast to come in like that. Read on.
I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments.
And this is why Hamashiach had to die. It wasn't the issue of, well, that's why Peter was like, you know, if he hadn't died, this is a little sidebar. If Hamashiach hadn't died, do you know that we would have never had the ability to resist the leavening in this world? It would have infected us, the purest of us. But it was only Hamashiach that could take that weight and then destroy it. That's why it pleased the Father to bruise him. You know, I remember being young and listening to church. What type of power would it please for him to see his son get crucified like that? Why did it please him? That's because the Most High loved Israel. You see what I'm saying? And he knew that would be the only acceptable sacrifice, that we too would be able to fight off sin in the flesh. Without Hamashiach, you can't do it. And so for these Old Testament only guys, you finish. I know you're struggling with sin. I know you're dealing with sin. Because you haven't accepted the unblemished land that it took on. So you're infested with it. Read on.
Come, I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments. The bands of the wicked have robbed me, but I have not forgotten thy law.
So that's important. He made haste. So notice that they did what in haste? They left in haste. The bread didn't have time enough to rise. Why? It wasn't fermented with that sourdough wasn't allowed to get in. And the heat, they baked it and they killed it. They killed the rising of it. You see you're starting to see the symbolism? We got to do the same thing. Remember, Israel was on the cross too. The one wicked malefactor, and then the other one that acknowledged his sins and was accepted. All right. So the Passover ban on leaven can be understood in relation to other biblical rituals forbidding the use of leaven. As a rule, sacrifices containing leaven were never to be offered. Give me Exodus 23:18. Captain Rom, give me Leviticus 2:11. Also, you got 1, Exodus 23:18.
It's Exodus 23 and verse 18. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning.
So you see that? So it was prohibited. You couldn't offer, and notice these were offerings unto the Most High. That's why Hamashiach had to do it. None of us could have died for the nation. Remember, he didn't know sin. He was without sin. Nobody could say that. Even when it came to Pilate, the evil heathen said, I find no fault with this man. He ain't done nothing wrong. All of us would have been Barabbas. We'd have been guilty. We were guilty. All right. Read what you got.
Come. Leviticus chapter 2, verse 11. No meat offering which ye shall bring unto the Most High.
So this is key. Notice these were all, you hear the wording, unto the Most High. Read.
Shall be made with leaven. For ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey, in any offering of the Lord made by fire.
Any offer to the Most High by fire unto the Most High. This is a different symbolism and acknowledgement of the Father when you were making these offerings unto the Father. But the only exceptions were offerings meant for the offerer and priest. So the only ones that were leavened were for the offerer and for the priest, but not the ones going strictly unto the Most High. And hence, they were not offered to the Most High. Give me Leviticus 7 and 13, Yahshua. And give me Leviticus 23, 17 through 20. Around.
Leviticus 23,
17 through 20.
Come.
Go ahead, Yahshua.
7 and 13.
7 and 13. Leviticus 7 and 13. You're doing a little faster than you did with Elder. Go ahead. Come.
Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering.
For his offering, come on.
Leavened bread.
Right.
With the sacrifices of thanksgiving of his peace offerings.
So this was for the offerer. This was for the person and the Levite. But or the Levite, this was not an offering unto the Most High. So the Most High did not accept offers with leaven in it. Read on. I mean, that's it on that. Yeah, you got Ron.
Come. This is Leviticus chapter 23, verse 17. Ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves, loaves of 2 tenth deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. Verse 18, and ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Most High, with his meat offering, and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Most High. Verse 19, then ye shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. Verse 20, and the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Most High with the 2 lambs, and they shall be set apart to the Most High for the priest.
So there's a difference. That was for the priest. That wasn't strictly unto the Most High. So we see the difference. There's some sacrifices that the Most High done accept. Now, remember when you go back to Hebrews 10:26, what does it tell you? Grab that right there. Grab the book of Hebrews 10:26.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 26. For if we sin willfully.
So if we sin willfully, so now here's the symbolism of the leaven, where you have the matzah, amasa, and you have the leavening agent. now you have the hamatzah, you have the bread that is leavened. Read on.
For if we sin willfully,
If you sin willfully now, read.
after that we have received the knowledge of the truth,
Now that you have the knowledge of what's sin or evil, read.
there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin,
So you can't offer unto the Most High an offering with leaven. All right, you have to catch that leaven. There's an offering that has to take place before you present the Most High what's due to his. He wants a sinless offering. Remember what your job is in Romans 12:1, to present yourself. So the grace that we have is to make sure that we're removing the leaven from our lives. Con? That's why in Romans 6:1, it says, shall we continue to sin because grace abounds? Who forbids? The Most High. Why? Because he doesn't accept sin. He's not going to accept it. There's nothing you can go to him and you full of sin and transgression. Oh, help me, please. But no, you have to remove that and then come to him. Con? Was that it with that? All right. So, the ban on leaven and sacrifice in general and on matzah in particular is related to the association of leavening with decomposition and putrefaction. Sourdough is clearly unsavory despite its useful role in bread preparation. Leaven may be thus have come to symbolize corruption. That's what sin does, it corrupts us. And that's what that's what's in the flesh, corruption. Huh? And thus an element to be consciously omitted from a feast involving spiritual rejuvenation. So the symbolism, we have to, if we're going to be rejuvenated, if we're going to be spiritually sound and strong, we have to make sure that we remove that leavening agent out of our life, which is symbolic to sin or represents evil. So we're going to get into some of that. Let's give me the book of 1 Corinthians 5 and verse 7. YAHAWAH. So it's very important that we don't make provision for the flesh. This is the same phraseology when it comes to unleavened bread. Ra'am, you get me Romans 13, and let's read 13 and 14. Let's read that first.
Romans 13.
Romans 13, verses 13 and 14.
Come. This is the book of Romans, chapter 13, verse 13. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the YAHAWAH'S Mashiach, and make not provision for the flesh.
So this is the new creature that you're supposed to be. You can't, it says to do what? Make what?
Make not provision for the flesh, to fulfill the lust thereof.
Don't allow it to come in. This is what, like the Wahad did. King Dawah, he turned to the testimony. When you sense it, because we're going to see where Yahweh, he didn't pray for the disciples not to leave the world. The world is full of leaven. But he wanted them to operate within this system, but not be contaminated, which would seem like an impossible task to the flesh. However, in Hamashiach Yahweh, we can do all things. It's in him. It's in him that he delivers us, because he destroyed sin in the flesh. That's what the crucifixion was all about. He destroyed sin in the flesh. We could have never done it, because that was the only offering that could be accepted. You could have died for your brother, but it wouldn't have been accepted for the defeat of the sins of the world of Israel. It would have never been accepted. Most High said, no, that's not. I may give you a little time, but that's not going to take away the sins of the world of Israel. All right? So read on, read what you got, Yahshua.
This 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Purge out therefore the old leaven.
You see the phrase, I purge out, symbolic of us leaving Egypt, making sure that the practices and what we learned there, we had to make sure that was extracted from our lives. So you too have to do that being here in Mystery Babylon. Purge out. You got to purge out the old leaven. Read on.
That ye may be a new lump.
That you may what?
Be a new lump.
You can't be the old lump. The phraseology for time's sake, I won't go all into it, but the old man is the old lump. You see the symbolism? That old man, that old nature, that old woman, the way we used to be, the way we used to behave, those same things seem to creep into our new way of existing. Come? They seem to come in there. Oh, we're always challenged with what? With the old man or the old nature. The old nature, all right? The old man, carnality, the flesh. That's why the scriptures bear record that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. We hear phraseology like destroying those things that are ready to die. There are things in us that need to die. We have to destroy that. So read that again from the top.
It says, purge out therefore the old leaven.
You got to purge out the old leaven. The old leaven is somewhere with, it's some sourdough waiting to fall over into that new lump. You got the accusers of the brethren. You got all types of leaven out here in this world that's trying to contaminate you. Different doctrines, trying to get into your system. We gotta purge it. We gotta make sure we purge it. You sure can. You can flow with the precepts today. Oh, you can flow with them today.
You want me to finish this first?
Yeah, I sure would like that. That would be kind of.
Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump.
Right.
As ye are unleavened.
As ye are what?
Unleavened.
Unleavened. We're unleavened because of YAHAWAH'S. Read.
For even Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
For us. This was the one that he was accepted to take away the leaven of Israel. To take them, more specifically, to take away its contaminating power. It didn't have no power. He killed it. He burned it before it had time to rise. That's what was crucified on the cross. That's why I said your flesh. That's what was killed. Sin in the flesh. That's what died. Hamashiach never died. He rose. His flesh, but he took it on. That's the only reason. If he wanted to, he could have ascended like Superman right up in the heavens. Gone. But his Father so loved the world. Read on.
Verse 8. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven.
We cannot keep this feast with the same old leaven, meaning guard the appointment and guard what we're proclaiming. Remember, we're proclaiming as his people that we're set apart and that we're different. How you gonna keep some and you not different? How are you keeping it? And you're not different. Read.
Neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness.
Malice is maliciousness. Malice, ill intent, evil intentions. Not knowing how to treat your brothers and sisters. Not having the fruits of the Spirit. And that's because you're contaminated. A little, it only takes a little bit. It only takes a little suggestion. Oh, he ain't right. Look what he got on. Joshua got on some new fringes. Man, that ain't right. You know what? It don't take but a little suggestion. That's just what's who she thinks she is. Coming in here, looking all color. See what I'm saying? It don't take but a little bit. Read on.
But with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
Which is the sincerity of his word. Read. That's how we should keep the feast.
Verse 9, I wrote unto you in an epistle, not to company with fornicators.
This is the message of how we should behave while we're here. Read.
Yet not altogether with the fornicators of this world.
It ain't just with the I want you to be separate from this world, but it's not just with the fornicators of this world. Read on.
Or with the covetous or extortioners.
Because we know that's common practice. Some of us know we're not hanging out with people that's clubbing all the time, committing all types of whoredoms. Read.
Or with idolatry.
We don't find ourselves in those practices and in those environments. Read on.
For then must ye needs go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company. If any man that is called a brother be a fornicator,
Even if you're in this truth and you call a brother, if you be a fornicator, read,
or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer,
you be quick to be angry and evil. You got a lot of men, man, that's ruling their houses like lions, expect their women to stay. Read on.
or a drunkard,
Or a drunkard, come on,
or an extortioner,
come on.
with such and one know not to eat.
So we know that that type of behavior, he's talking to Israel. He's talking to our own brothers and sisters in the community, that we have to separate from them. That's how important and how technical it is to abstain from that leaven. Because it only takes a little bit. That's why I was talking about the gossip. That's why you think there are laws against that. Tale-bearing, gossiping, backbite, because it only takes a little bit. And that's the stuff that people like. They don't even like to teach on stuff like that. But that's the stuff that's contaminating Israel. That's the beginning of the destruction. It only takes a sprinkle. I'm gonna splash a little bit. I'm just saying, it only takes one person to come into your congregation and stir up a bunch of bull. Go ahead.
Verse 12. It says, for what have I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within? But them that are without, God judges.
Right.
Therefore put away from among yourselves that wicked person.
So we got to do that. And I always like to use this analogy. Make sure that wicked person is not you. And put yourself away if necessary. Put yourself away. Put that part of you away. Let that part die. All right? Kill it. Put some heat on it. Put some extreme cold on it. But whatever it takes to get rid of that leaven, you got to kill it. All right? Go ahead and bring out your precept, Yeshua.
God, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 6. It says, then YAHAWAH'S said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees.
You see that? Beware of it, because it's there. This is how fitting. These are people that we would call brothers. Breathe.
And they reason among themselves, saying, it is because we have taken no bread. Which when YAHAWAH perceived, he said unto them, O ye of little faith, why reason ye among yourselves, because ye have brought no bread?
Mm-hmm.
Do ye not yet understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000, and how many baskets ye took up? Neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many baskets ye took up? How is it that ye do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that ye should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees?
Mm-hmm.
Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees.
You see that doctrine? And the doctrine was that of hypocrisy and using the law unlawfully. So this is what we see in Israel. Extortioners, because of using the law unlawfully, they have become legalists. And a legalist that is not sincere is the most damaging or contaminating factor in a congregation of those that would seek to serve the Most High, because they can manipulate you. And that's what happens a lot of times in Israel, because people are man-pleasers. And the Most High allows it to see who you're going to follow. You're going to see, you going to follow man, or you following me? Was that it on that? That was powerful. Bring it out.
Now, this is the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 6. I'm going to start at the 14th verse. It says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. This is going into what you were saying, not to accompany the fornicators.
That's right.
Right? It says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness?
Look at that. Now, how does that sound like? What fellowship does leaven have with unleavened.
Don't mix.
It's gonna contaminate, it's gonna ruin it. Read.
God. It says, and what communion hath light with darkness?
Look at that. Because of the contamination. That's why the Most High is dealing with just weights, with balances, and all of this. Perfect mixtures. When you go into the details of what he's doing. That's why he says, be ye perfect, as I am perfect. We make excuses to accept leaven. We make excuses. And it destroys us. Read on.
Come. And what concord hath Hamashiach with Belial, or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel?
Think about this. Every time we compromise, isn't that the leaven of the Pharisees? Wasn't there leaven hypocrisy? Where they would say one thing and do another? Don't we do that sometimes? We push the commandments, but do we ourselves keep them? We push the feast days, but do we ourselves keep them? That sounds like hypocrisy. That's the leaven of the Pharisees, and we got to beware of that. And we got to start calling it out. Or we're going to find ourselves being respecters of people. When we compromise what the Most High instruct us to do, then this is a hard test too. To see if are you a man pleaser? You ain't going to say nothing. You're just going to let them. Look, he told you not to keep company with them. So you're not even going to say nothing. Read on.
Verse 16, and what agreement hath the temple of God with idols?
Right.
For ye are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people.
So that's very well. You said the temple. I was watching something, man. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I've seen a lot of things in my short time, but this documentary of this temple in East India, and it was a rat's temple. And my rib, she hates rats. She couldn't even watch one. As soon as they showed the little rat, she was going off somewhere. But I watched this, and the rats, this temple was dedicated to the rats, where it was actually a rat's temple. And they were all in it. They had big bowls of milk in there. And the rats were all around. They were on the edge, and they were all drinking. And this East Indian guy, he comes in there. And the guy's interviewing him, and it's a bowl of milk. And the rats are it's 20 rats around, and there's rats everywhere. He went down to pray, and a rat went by his head. I'm like, if this is your power, and you bent down, and you're praying, and a rat go by your head, you're in hell, sir. This is not the kingdom. Let me let you know that you're in hell. If a rat, you go down to pray, and a rat go by your head. This place was filled with it, but it gets worse. He goes down, and he dips his hand in the milk. The rats are all around. Not only did he said this before, he said these rats are his reincarnated loved ones. And I was thinking, man, what type of doctrine? That's what I'm saying. What did they do to come back like this? That's the worst thing you could be. A rat?
You already know Elon nasty already.
Oh, they are nasty. So this was, anyway, the guy went in there. All praise to the Most High. Elders of choir. I could sense it. Oh, there he is. He puts his hand in this milk, and it's rat droppings in there. But he finds a space. I guess he didn't get the rat droppings, but he found a space. He pulled this milk up to his hand, and he told the people. And the guy, the commentator, was asking, "Is it good for you?" "Oh, very healthy, very healthy." And he drank it. He drank the rat's milk out of this rat's temple. So, but think about that. That's what we do when we allow leaven to enter in. But that's what we do when we allow leaven to enter. It's the same thing. Remember what the scriptures say about returning to your own vomit. Okay, come. Like a dog returns to his own vomit. So that's, it's letting you know that type of filth, that type of doctrine is infiltrating us. He didn't even separate. He didn't make a distinction between the rats. That was liquid cheese they didn't drink. This rat's temple in India, man, that was disgusting. You can't make this stuff up. And he went in there and he drank, and he couldn't make the distinction between what was clean and unclean. He sat there and said it was good for him. It was healthy. And a lot of us are going that way, though. We think that, you know, continuing to allow this leaven to enter in, that we can play with it. You can't. You got to get it out. Or you find yourself. This is empty. Yeah, no, hell no, man. Disgusting. But go ahead, read on.
Yeah, it gets even better, right? So this is 2 Corinthians 6 and 17. It says, wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate.
Do what?
Be ye separate.
You gotta come out, because clearly if we went in that temple, we probably would never, what's the saying, never again? Yeah, their so-called Holocaust, our Holocaust, but that would be another never again moment. The first time you take me to the Rats temple in India, I would never go back. We're not having that discussion. Go ahead.
It says, wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate.
And be ye separated.
Said the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing.
You see that? And that's how the doctrine, the hypocrisy, it starts to fester in congregations, and you start to see splits and divisions and hearsays, accusations. That's all coming from leaven, and we got to be very conscious of it to purge it out. Elder always say, that's Satan. You got to recognize it. You got to acknowledge, you got to discern it, because then it's our job to purge it out. You can't just let it happen. The Most High is giving us instruction to purge. And if you see that in you, you got to kill it. Again, the bread didn't have time enough to rise, because in that process, heat, extreme heat or extreme cold kills leaven. But lukewarmness, oh man, it festers. Sourdough sit up and puff all day, swell up like them rats, drinking that liquid cheese. Read on.
And touch not the unclean thing.
They were healthy too. There's some juicy ones. Go ahead.
And I will receive you.
And I will receive you. So we got one nation that'll cook the rat, and then we got another one that worships. Madness, man. These doctrines. But a lot of us are those rats, man, because we just latch on to every wind of doctrine, man, allows it to divide us and to separate us and make us evil, and we hissing at each other like demons, man. And that's got to stop. Bring it out.
This is the book of Jude, book of Jude, verse 15.
One of my favorite books.
To execute judgment upon all and convince all that are ungodly among them of their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against them.
Read the verse above the verse you just read.
Verse 14. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints. There you go to 15.
Keep reading that.
To execute his judgment.
That's the judgment that's going to come if you allow that leaven. Because that's what leaven is going to do. It's going to puff up, and that's going to be an offering that's not accepted unto the Most High. So everything he read, it shows you the character of that leaven. Con? All right. Give me the book of 1 Corinthians 5, 6, and 7. And it's important that we purge out the leaven. Remember, Hamashiach YAHAWAH'S, he was the acceptable sacrifice that could take on the sins of the world unto the Most High of the world of Israelites. But now, our responsibility in him is to purge out the leaven. He's empowered you to purge out the leaven. It's him in you. It's no longer you. You're not the old man unless you're still the old man. Are you still that old man? I'm an old man, but I'm not the old man. I'm not the same old man. Right?
God.
Then we have some that are older. I knew you were going to do it. I had to just say it out there. I didn't say who. But go ahead.
It said 1 Corinthians 5 and 6.
Correct. 5, 6, and 7.
Your glorying is not good.
Come on.
Know ye not that a little leaven,
A little only takes a little bit. Come on.
leaveneth the whole lump?
Hmm.
Purge out therefore the old leaven.
Don't allow, like we read earlier in Romans 13, don't allow provision for the flesh. When you see it, as soon as you see it, you got to kill it. Don't allow that leaven to enter or to fester. Because even if leaven gets in, it can be purged with extreme heat or extreme cold. Huh? It's just when you let it sit there, and then it becomes that sourdough. And now it's got to be thrown out. Got to be completely destroyed. Read on.
Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump.
That you may what?
Be a new lump.
A fresh, new, unleavened lump. So purge out. It's not a lump full of leaven. It's a new leaven. It's a new lump without leaven. Huh? All right. Give me Galatians 5:9. It says the same thing. Yahshua, give me a 1 John 2:15, and then we'll get John 17 and start at verse 1 and read the 14, and then I'm going to close there.
This is the book of Galatians chapter 5 verse 9. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump.
Mm-hmm.
I have confidence in you through the outer one, that ye will be none otherwise minded. For he that troubleth you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he be.
So it's even important too that we don't be that contaminated. It's another thing to be contaminated, but don't you find yourself as being that leaven. Don't you be that leaven in people's lives. That's why it's important that we remove the leaven. This was a self-examination. This was a symbolism of this particular feast, to keep the feast without leaven and have it out of your houses. Make sure it's none found within your dwelling. Huh? We got to make sure that we're not that leavening agent. We're not the contaminating factor. Huh? All right. Give me 1 John 2:15.
1 John 2:15. It says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world.
So this is the responsibility of an unleavened lump. Loving not the world. Don't allow the world to attach itself to you. Don't allow it to get into your system. Read on.
If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him.
Now that's important, because without the love of the Father, if the love of the Father is not in you, then the love of the commandments are not in you. And if the love of the commandments are not in you, there's no way that you can not be contaminated by the love of the world. You can't fight. You don't have nothing to fight with. You don't have nothing. You're empty. Some of us need to be spiritually rejuvenated. But you got to remove it. It's time. That sin is ready to die. There's a lot of stuff in us that we've been like pets. We've been playing with too long. Now it's time to kill it. Put some extreme heat on it. Get in this word. Go ahead. Fast. You know, the flesh don't like fast. You can't make provision for the flesh. You start crucifying the flesh. Fast. Make that flesh wait. Make that flesh say, I'm thirsty, and still not give them nothing. Make the flesh scream mercy, and you still don't let them up. I ain't letting you. I got a knee on the neck of my flesh. How about that? That's what needs to die. Read.
Verse 16. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes.
So he's telling us how not to be contaminated with the leaven of the world. Read on.
And the pride of life.
That's all this. These are the contaminating factors. These are the things that, this is the leaven that's going to contaminate you and cause you not to be accepted. Read.
Is not of the Father, but is of the world.
That's not of the Father, but of the world. Read on.
And the world passeth away.
This is all going to pass away. It's going to be destroyed because of how much leaven it is. It's got to be burned with fire. Notice how he's coming to destroy the earth with fire. That's the only way you get rid of sourdough that's good for nothing. It's got to be completely eradicated.
I got a precept.
Bring it up. What you got here?
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 29. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out,
Come on.
and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body shall be cast into hell.
Beautiful precept. Because this, listen, if you understood the trap that we're in, let me give you an analogy, beloved. You get caught in a bear trap, and a bear is coming for you. That's the trap we in. So it's better that you chop your leg off, that leg that got caught, than to get caught by that bear. And if you don't remove leaven from, it's better to chop your hand, have your hand removed, your eye. That's the symbolism in it. But whatever it takes, if it means you say, I can't come outside today, or lock yourself up somewhere. But this is the importance and how the Most High was putting emphasis on making sure that the kingdom should be your priority, and don't allow your sinful nature to stop you from getting there. That you got to kill it. You got to destroy it. He destroyed sin in the flesh. Remember, I told you, the only offerings that were accepted to the Most High that had leaven in it was for the offerer and for the priest. But all those offerings that went directly to the Most High were without leaven. Those are the only ones that can be accepted. That's why Hamashiach was the only one that could die for our nation. Nobody else. When people wonder, it's impossible. He had no sin. And that offering was going unto the Most High. That was the order. That's the Levitical order. That's all through the Torah in terms of way sacrifices and offering. So, like I said before, it pleased him to bruise him because he was taking away the sins of Israel. He took it on. And if he hadn't of, we would have all been that man in that bear trap with a bear on the way, with no way of an escape. All right? Read on.
This is 1 John chapter 2, verse 17. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever.
Man, look at that. So doing the will, that's what's going to deliver you from death. That's keeping you unleavened. All right? Give me John 17 and start at verse 1. And so I want to just a recap, so we'll have it. So once again, the revelation of the bread being in the oven, you know, and the Most High saying to remove, where he wants us to remove that bread before it can rise. Remember, we left in haste, didn't have time to rise. The yeast didn't have time to ferment. That dough didn't have time in the fermentation process to rise. It's two things that kill that rising process: extreme heat or extreme cold. That's why he said, I'd rather you be hot or cold. Lukewarmness causes bread that in that process of fermentation. Lukewarmness is one of the most elements that cause that bread to rise. Isn't that right, Yahshua? In cooking and anything, it's that. Guess what else? Certain air, if you give steam, can cause it. So he wasn't telling you to remove out the steam out your house, because steam can be a leavening agent. The emphasis is when you apply it, when you put it with that dough, with that bread, with that yeast, and then you start this fermentation process, because it's a process, and it takes a process for sin as Israelites to start getting into you. That's where your meditation, that's why he said, keep your mind stayed on, meditate on him day and night, reading these scriptures. That's keeping the leaven out. When you stop that, oh, he creeping in. And it don't take but a little bit. Watch a couple of them bad shows and entertain a couple of bad shows. They don't take long. We got to be very careful of that. Read what you got. John 17. Okay, go ahead.
It says, these words spake YAHAWAH'S, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, Father, the hour is come.
Now, when was this? When did he say this? What time was this? It was on unleavened bread, beloved.
Come.
Read on.
Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee.
Come on.
As thou hast given him power over all flesh.
He's given him power over all flesh. To do what? To defeat it. He defeated all the fleshly desires and lusts of our nation, man. Read on.
that he should give eternal life to as many as thou hast given him.
And as many as that are his. Because remember what was taught the other day about no man come to the Most High unless they be drawn of the Most High. Read on.
And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and YAHAWAH'S HaMashiach, whom thou hast sent. I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do.
So the finished work that he did in the earth was condemn sin in the flesh. Read on.
And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me.
Now notice the Most High gave these men to YAHAWAH. Read on.
And they have kept thy word.
And they kept thy word. Read on.
Now they have known that all things whatsoever thou hast given me are of thee. For I have given unto them the words which thou gavest me, and they have received them, and have known surely that I came out from thee, and they have believed that thou didst send me.
That's why the male factor was able to see paradise on the right-hand side. Read on.
I pray for them. I pray not for the world.
He does what?
I pray for them. I pray not for the world.
So he couldn't have died for the whole world. That don't even make sense. Read.
But for them which thou hast given me,
The ones that the Most High has given them, which is Yahshua. Come on.
for they are thine,
Read.
and all mine are thine,
Read.
and thine are mine, and I am glorified in them.
Come on.
And now I am no more in the world, but these are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to thee, Holy Father, keep thou thine own name, those whom thou hast given me, that they may be one as we are. Verse 12, While I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. Those that thou gavest me I have kept, and none of them is lost.
Come on.
But the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled.
Read on.
And now come I to thee, and these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy fulfilled in themselves.
Mm-hmm. What verse you at?
14.
That's the one.
I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them.
He given them the word. This is the separation. This is the distinction of what unleavened bread is all about. Given the word. Read it again.
I have given them thy word,
Mm-hmm.
and the world hath hated them.
Right? So if you have the word in you, that's going to make you separate from this world anyway. That's going to cause you to be unleavened. Read.
Because they are not of the world.
Because they're not of the world. They're not contaminated. We're not supposed to be like the world. Read on.
Even as I am not of the world.
Even as Hamashiach is not of the world. Read on.
I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world.
And I don't pray that you remove them out of the world. Read on.
But that thou shouldest keep them from the evil.
Keep them what?
From the evil.
Keep them from the leaven. So this is not of your own power. This is just you acknowledging the power. This is you acknowledging the power. They acknowledged the word. They kept the word. And this is what caused them to be powerful. This is why we're princes of power. This is why we're Yahshua. We're princes of power. We're princesses of power. The women are princesses. The men are princes of power. Read on.
Sanctify them through thy
Sanctify them. Now, maybe you don't know who you are, really. Maybe y'all don't really realize who you really are and how important you are. And the ability that the Most High has given you. Read on.
Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth.
That's why the word is so important. And keeping these commandments is so important. That's the only thing that's going to empower you. By Hashem HaMashiach. Read on.
It says, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. As thou hast sent me into the world, even so have I also sent them into the world.
So he sends us into the world, but he told us not to be of it. So our job is to what? Be ye perfect, as he is perfect. And that's walking in perfection. which we know are the law, statutes, and commandments, empowered by what he did on the cross. Con? You got something?
Yeah, I
Bring it
just
out.
want to say something. So, when you look at verse 17, it says, sanctify them through thy truth, right? We always understand that the law is the truth. But
Right.
even it says thy word is truth. YAHAWAH'S said in Mark 4:4, it says, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, right? So when you look at the word, it is the truth. The Most High gave the word, he gave the law. So you get cleansed and sanctified by what? By the law. That's what cleanses, that's what it takes the leaven.
Ephesians said, through the washing of the water by the word. Yeah, get it real quick. But yeah, that's the significant. I want us to make sure that, you know, we understand and apply. And there's still more revelation to what Hamashiach has done for us, and it's being revealed in the last days. But it's important that we stay uncontaminated with the leaven of this world. That we don't give sin time enough to rise in ourselves. We have everything necessary to purge out the leaven. What's something that you can use to purge, which is fire. Fire is synonymous with purging. The word is fire. The word is fire. You put that word on it, it'll burn it up. You dealing with lust, start meditating on all the scriptures that deal with lust. It's gonna burn it away. But you have to make sure that you purge it. You know, you're dealing with any impure thoughts. There's nothing that can't be identified that's not in these scriptures. It can be identified and it can be destroyed. We can do all things through Hamashiach, YAHAWAH'S, who strengthens us. All right, did you have something? Okay. Somebody had something else?
Yeah, this is Ephesians 5:26.
Bring it out.
That he might sanctify or cleanse, right? That he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word.
Right, so when you don't, it's never the Most High's fault now. It's never Hamashiach's fault. He finished it. It's our responsibility now. That he might sanctify, because this is his doing. So we need to make sure that we're not contaminated by the sins of this world and not to meddle with that anymore. Con? All right, anybody got anything else?
I got one for you.
Bring it out.
It's the book of 1 John chapter 2, verse 7. It says, brethren, I write no new commandment unto you, but an old commandment, which ye had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word, which ye have heard from the beginning. So that just goes into what y'all was talking about the main principle being the word.
That's right.
And keeping of the law.
Keeping the law. And notice how the Most High is taking us back to the beginning whenever we keep these feasts. It's always to the beginning. We're always going back to the start. Give me, lastly, I'm going to 1 Ezra 7, 10 through 15. Because this time was a little bit more celebratory. This particular part of the feast of unleavened bread. And we're going to enjoy it again with Hamashiach, Most High willing.
Come. This is 1 Ezra chapter 7, verse 10. And the children of Israel that were of the captivity.
That were what?
Of the captivity.
Come on.
Held the Passover the 14th day of the first month. After that, the priests and Levites were sanctified.
Read on.
So you can keep the Passover in captivity.
That's what, yeah, that's a cut to anybody, so you can't. Come on.
They that were of the captivity were not all sanctified together.
All of them weren't sanctified together. Come on.
But the Levites were all sanctified together.
Mm-hmm.
And so they offered the Passover for all them of the captivity, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves.
So even sometimes, even when we think about it, we need to think about even those of us of our nation that don't even know they Israelites yet. Those that are going to come into this. And we need to be praying for them as well. The Most High knows of those that's going to come in. Remember what Hamashiach prayed in John 17. He said there are others too It ain't just for these that you gave me, but there are others even more amongst us. We know that, but there are others. We need to be thinking about them. YAHAWAH'S thought about them. They were in captivity. That's why we go out there and do what we do. Read on.
Come. It says, and the children of Israel that came out of the captivity did eat, even all they that had separated themselves from the abominations.
So next year, Most High willing, let's try to have some new faces here. Let it be our job to bring those of the captivity, to bring them to the Passover, to unleavened bread, because the symbolism, what it signifies is them being separated from the world. And we're teaching them to love not the world and to come out of the world. Some of the evidence would be again, he told the disciples to make disciples. You didn't think those disciples came and was eating? The Passover was multiplied. Let us think about that in our time. Come? All right, read on.
Even all they that had separated themselves from the abominations of the people of the land, and sought of the Lord. And they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days.
How many days?
7 days.
7 days. Read on.
Making merry before the Lord, for that he had turned the counsel of the king of Assyria toward them, to strengthen their hands in the works of the Most High God of Israel.
So my prayer and belief is, as we celebrated this feast, man, that the Most High will have mercy on us and kindness to strengthen our hands in the vineyard, man, in the labor as we go forth this time, that all the isms and schisms, man, that the Most High destroy it, burn it out, and purge it out amongst us by Shema Mashiach YAHAWAH'S.